I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me is the co-host of the show, Gary Groob. Unfortunately, this week, folks, our guest could not make it. And so now you will have to put up with Gary and I a little more. Now, we've had some complaints. They came by email. Frank, Gary, you guys talk too much. Actually, they said Frank talks too much, but, Gary does perfect. You know, uh,
No, Johnny Davis, he'll be on with us, but it'll be at the beginning of September. He
yeah,
had a golf engagement that he couldn't get out of, and with another legend, Carm Collins. So that would be to be a fly on the wall in those conversations would be amazing. But
yeah.
both of those guys will be on the show in future weeks. So it's going to be
I,
exciting.
I wanted to start with the story about Ben Stetler. He was a young boy, 5 years old, passed away. He was a favorite of the Edmonton Oilers. I wish them condolences, and I just wanted to remind people that there are a lot of children that are challenged by cancer and various diseases and maladies that take them from parents, the worst possible thing that can happen. And I know this is really tough for his family, and I think it's also tough for a lot of other families who understand, or at least think they can understand, and I think fairly understand the pain and suffering that his parents and his family is going through. So my condolences, and just another reason why we have to beat cancer.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get on with the show, and the show's about lacrosse, and we don't have a guest, so we have an opportunity to speak about the game itself and the leagues that are a part of it. So let's start with the league that's on the title of this show, the NLL. They have a new commissioner.
That they do. Brett Frood is his name, and he comes from Stewart-Haas Racing of NASCAR. He served as president of that team since its inception in 2008, leading all business initiatives for the championship-winning organization, co-owned by NASCAR Hall of Famer Tony Stewart and industrialist Gene Haas. He'll begin his new role with the NLL September 1st, and he becomes the fifth commissioner since its relaunch in '97. Looking forward to it.
This is a guy who's
Lots of glory.
Oh, sorry, Gary. This is a guy who's made the racing team, Newman Haas, extremely famous, profitable, and when you talk about racing, that team comes to mind. So, I think another great pick by the NLL for commissioner.
I think so as well. I think that's the next step. Now you need to have these guys who know how to market to mainstream.
Well, that's what he does, right?
That's exactly what he does. That's why this is such a perfect step towards where they want to be and where they're going to be going.
Yep. Lacrosse has been expanding through the pandemic, continues to expand. Players and are getting paid a little more because television now is becoming more prevalent. Not that streaming isn't a great thing, but it isn't quite as good as regular television because, that's where the money is, to be honest, Gary. That's where the money is. It's in broadcast television, network television, the sports networks. That's where you want to be because the majority of sports fans are watching sports network television, whether it be cable or streaming even now, because even Apple is becoming a concern. So, moving forward, they're starting to make some money. And I think with what Newman Haas did is, there's about reinvestment. And what you're talking about is reinvesting some of that capital that they have that they didn't have previously to help improve the situation in as far as reaching a fan base and expanding it.
Absolutely. And again, you're talking about with cable TV now, it also expands to a whole wide variety of people who would never have watched this game. Streaming is great because it's great for guys like you and me who are going to watch it on any device anywhere, and it's just convenient that we can always catch it. But cable, now everybody can get a chance to see it free at a pub, at home, channel surfing, and it's just going to grow wildfire from now. And a good example is actually what the PLL has done. And the PLL brought the WWE and Kevin Durant's group on board as investors as well, and sponsors. So they're moving forward too. So the marketing is paramount, and having Brett Frude as a commissioner, I think, is a huge step in the right direction for the NLL and what they want to accomplish.
Another way to describe it would be the goal has to be like you described it. I'll say it a different way, the same thing, but now what you're looking for is not people who are looking for the game and to watch the game. You're looking for people that trip over the appearance of the game so that it shows up and it's something they've never seen, and all of a sudden they go, why have I not seen this? I'm going to continue watching it. Oh, that's not bad. That's really good stuff. I think I'm going to watch this sport. I think I could like this sport. I'm going to find out more about this sport. So I put it that way because essentially that's what television does, regular broadcast television, because no matter what you're watching, eventually you find out about something else. And that's the trip I'm talking about, where basically you don't plan to see something, but you inadvertently see it because of other programming that you might be interested in. So
Absolutely.
basically, lacrosse has to get into the mix, if I can use that term as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, the sky's the limit because really they're going into untapped territory. And to be part of the Big Four is where their goal is, and they're heading in that direction at a pretty rapid rate. Don't forget, we have Las Vegas coming on this year as a new expansion team. Everything is moving there. They've already had the expansion draft. They're going to have the entry draft coming up in a few weeks, and that team will form, and we'll see where it lands amongst the landscape. And it's brighter and brighter. So what Nick Sakavitz was able to start and move forward and put a foundation, I think Brett Frude is going to move it that much further along. So I think it was a great move, and I think that the NLL did their homework. They took their time. They sorted out what they needed and how they needed it, and they got the right man for the job.
Yeah, Sakavitz and his team developed a template that they not just suggested to teams, it basically said, this
This
is
is
the
it.
way you do it. Trust us. You gave us the money. Now we're going to show you how your investment can be, let's just say, profitable to whatever degree anybody thinks is that where that word fits in. So
For sure.
if it's profitable, you're not losing money, and I think that's the first hurdle every sports franchise in every league tries to get to, and that's the whole point of what I think Sakavitz did so well is that he eliminated the weak franchises. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're buying into a league, first thing you find out is, are there weak franchises? And could I be one if I invest my money? If there aren't any, it makes you a little more comfortable about investing. So yeah, this new commissioner is a guy who can see the big picture and understands how to grow something from either nothing or less and make it more. So we wish him all the luck in the world. Congratulations for the job. Good for the NLL to bring in a new commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
It took a little while for them to do it, but it got done. And the good news is also for the people that were involved, too, the vice commissioner or assistant commissioner, whatever, both the commissioner and she got jobs elsewhere. So we know the job that they were doing was good because people said, let's get those two.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think Brian Lemon should be commended. He was the VP of operations, and he took over the reins when Sakavitz and Berman left, and he's part of the next story as well. But he was part of that search committee and leading the league the way he did. I think he should be commended for a job.
Absolutely. Good leadership is what you need. It affects everybody, right? It is like the body of water under everybody's ship. It has to be, every ship is buoyed by good water. And these guys that they've been on a good run. Hopefully they'll keep going on a good run. And the league continues to grow. The players,
Well, the other thing with Frood, you got to remember is he went to business school. He worked in equity capital markets on Wall Street. He actually pursued entrepreneurial interest in Europe and enrolled in the Harvard Business School. He was co-president of the Business of Sports Clubs. He continued to have involvement in lacrosse as well, so he knows the game. He doesn't have to spend time learning it, so he can actually hit the ground running.
So he knows the game, he knows the business, and he has experience doing it. Seems like a good
That's
background to come in with.
that's a good trifecta, I'd say. That's possible.
I think he has the credentials, so he better not disappoint because our reputations are riding on his coattails.
Absolutely. He's got our seal of approval, so let's not let us down.
Woo, 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 my seal of approval. Okay.
All right.
Now, they did some other business in the NLL. They also negotiated and agreed on a new CBA, and that's important. Gary, tell us about the CBA that they agreed to.
Well, it's still to be ratified, but yeah, the league for the first time again under Sakavitz had a working relationship with the players' union. For many years, there was always at odds with one another, and we've had lockouts and strikes and all kinds of other things that I think would have been suicide coming out of COVID with all this momentum with TV contracts and things. So they were able to hammer out a CBA tentative agreement. But the big thing means that August 15th, I believe that's Monday, free agency begins for the NLL because, again, that was on hold until they could get this thing done. So now we're going to see whatever movement there is going to be. There's a number of names. The Saskatchewan Rush have a few people that they're going to be moving it, as well as a number of other ones. But it should be interesting once free agency opens up next week to see where people land and what's going to bolster, and if Las Vegas is going to add some of these guys as key building pieces to their teams.
And with the addition of the team, it means more players get an opportunity. It means more players, not a lot more players in the context of a league full of players with one team coming in, but there's players that get a chance to be a star on that team, players that get a chance to play on that team, and players on teams now that are basically in the practice squad, or even the ones that are on the bench that get a chance, the odd one that get a chance to show what they can do. So there's opportunity all the way around, and that's always good in my opinion.
Sure. Well, just to take a look at a few names that are on the free agency list, you have Curtis Dixon out of Calgary, Brendan Bombury from the Georgia Swarm, Kevin Crowley, Philadelphia Wings, Kyle Rubish, Saskatchewan, Ryan Benesh, Chris Corbeil, also from Saskatchewan, Damon Edwards, another former guest of ours, Sean Evans, Connor Kiernan, Kyle Killen, Jeremy Noble. Be interesting if Jeremy Noble came to Toronto and played with his brother Jason. They were a pretty formidable team, shall we say, when they were doing Minto Cups in junior. So it'd be interesting if they could get it together here.
Well,
Chris Wardles, Bryce Sweeting. You have Aaron Bold, Evan Kirk, Gal Abrams for goaltending. So there's a lot of big names that are on the market. So there should be a fair amount of movement come next week. So it should be an exciting time. Saskatchewan did have a couple other little things just quickly before we move out of NLL. Is they've solidified their bench now because, as you know, they fired McComb at the end of the year and put Jimmy Quinlan as an interim coach. Well, the interim tag is gone now. Jimmy Quinlan is the head coach of the Saskatchewan Rush, as well as he is the assistant general manager. So he's going to work very much with Derek Keenan, learning ins and outs. And I think you can't get a better teacher than that in all aspects of the game. They also replaced, since McComb was the offensive guy too, they signed Cam Sedgwick, who was originally drafted by the Toronto Rock, of all things, in '97, and had a career with the NLL as a player. And he's now going to be the offensive coordinator for the Saskatchewan Rush.
good for them. All right, so that's the NLL up to date today. Let's get the ALL up to date. They now have an eighth franchise in the Eastern Division.
They do. Paul St. John has added a team into the East Coast here. I expect more coming out of the West Coast in the next little bit, but Brampton now has a team in the Arena Lacrosse League. So you've got Six Nations, Toronto, Paris, Oshawa, Peterborough, Whitby, St. Catharines, and now Brampton playing out of the Memorial Arena out in Brampton. And that's a great move because, that league has done wonders for players that needed that little extra something to make it to the next level. Guys like Stephen Orleman, Craig Wendy, all had stops in there and now are viable NLL goalies. A number of players as well, and they just needed that little extra seasoning. They have NLL coaches. They're using NLL rules, so they're getting the shall we say that little bit of extra coaching and pep talking on how to be a professional, as
Uh,
opposed to
I'm
hanging up your stick
assuming
if you don't make it.
I'm assuming the team won't be known as the Excelsiors. I'm assuming that.
I'm pretty sure it won't be named
Right.
that.
So people in Brampton will have to get used to a new name. It's a shame because it really is a tragedy that that name basically is on either hold or will disappear, or if luck has it that they can,
I think it's just on hold because I think the way it's set up, regardless of what happens, is either that franchise that is goes to Owen Sound and a new one goes to Brampton, or that franchise goes back to Brampton and a new one goes to Owen Sound, and they're going to have to hammer all that stuff out at a later time.
such
That's for them to figure it out. So.
such a great history, a tradition lost. It's not, and this isn't being said for the sake of handing out blame. I'm just talking about the result. The result is that the Excelsiors at this time do not exist, and that's a shame. A very proud name when it comes to lacrosse in the Brampton community, but it is what it is. That's what happens. Any other news with the ALL that we need to know about, Gary?
No, that's about it for now, but there will be some in the near future because the league will be picking up again come the late fall, early winter. And they will be the feeder league for the NLL again, both East and West. Again, I expect to see much more coming out of the West as well. It was very, very successful in their first year, as well as what Paul was saying is the women's divisions, both East and West, have been very, very successful as well. And I look forward to hearing more about that in the coming weeks and months.
Tell us a little more about the women's lacrosse.
Well,
Is it how
they've
many teams are in the league? Give us an indication of.
honestly, I don't know, Frank.
Oh, okay, okay. No, no, I'm sorry. I should have checked before the show to ask you that question. That was
But I
unfair.
do know,
I
like I said, from
apologize.
Paul, the enrollment has been up, uh, especially in the West. They didn't expect so much enrollment as there was, and so now they're going to have to look at putting more teams out there as well as in the East. So it's a very bright future.
Yeah. So basically, what you're telling me is, I think he's saving my butt a little bit. What he's saying is he can't tell you how many teams there are because there's such good enrollment. He could find out yesterday how many teams there are. Tomorrow there'll be more teams. That's what I'm hoping anyway. That's what I'm hoping.
That direction, anyways.
Yeah.
Like it's just like everything else right now. Lacrosse is on the growth, so everything is expanding. So
And
um,
women's sports is just through the roof.
it's on the cusp of something very, very big. And with people like Michelle Boyer at the helm with World Lacrosse, expect big jolts coming real soon.
All right, let's talk about the second round in MSL.
Well, we're going to be heading into the second round. We just completed the first round. Peterborough, a little bit of strange stuff in that series. Peterborough beat Brooklyn 4-1, but the interesting thing about that series was after game one, that Peterborough won 12-8. Gavin Prout, another former guest of ours, got into it with the officials and apparently got quite heated, and he received an abuse of officials penalty. Now,
Wow.
that penalty comes with a minimum 3-game suspension. Now, it didn't make the game sheets, the initial game sheets. And it makes sense because they wouldn't know if it's a first offense, second offense, third offense, because second offense is a 5-game suspension, and so on and so forth. So he was on the bench in game two in Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn wound up winning that game 12-10. But Paul Day, being astute as a GM for Peterborough, put in a a dispute with the league, saying that they had a suspended player slash coach uh, active on the bench, and it was deemed by the OLA that they would forfeit that game. So Peterborough wound up winning that game.
Wow.
Of course, an appeal was launched, and the OLA, being the OLA, dragged their heels and didn't actually hear the appeal until the afternoon slash evening of Game 5. So let me get to the other games. The night that they were stripped of Game 2, Brooklyn actually won in overtime in Game 3, and Peterborough stormed back with a very convincing win in Game 4, 12-8. Game 5, again, no one knew pregame. I was up in Peterborough for Game 5, and at the pregame party, everybody checking their phones continuously to see if there was any messages, any news, any tweets, until about 6 or 6:30, and then the tweets started coming out. It's an 8 o'clock game, right? So, we're cutting it kind of close. And the OLA upheld their decision that Brooklyn would be stripped of that game, and it was 3-1. Peterborough put an exclamation point on this game. Now, the score was 11-8, but that's not indicative of the game. At one point, I believe it was 9-2 for Peterborough, and then they just kind of coasted to the 11-8 win. The interesting thing here was also that this was the first game that Matt Vince played for them. Now, Matt Vince, of course, with the Bandits, and he was on the roster, but Doug Buchan and Mike Poulin had done the majority of they'd done all the work for the Peterborough Nets. So Vince came in for this game. He was stellar. He looked like Matt Vince of old. Looked like the rest that he got was needed, and he looked fresh. So Peterborough has bolstered up their lineup with a lot of the veterans. So they're going to be very, very tough to beat as they work towards trying to do a four-peat of the Mann Cup. Now, in the other series that just finished last night, Six Nations beat an upstart Coburg team. Now, I say an upstart Coburg team because they played very well. But for a few bounces here or there, it could have been the other way easily. 3 of those 4 losses were 1-goal losses. The last game last night was in double overtime.
Sounds to me like goaltending was a factor, Gary.
Yes, and of course, we're bringing on to Stephen Orleman, a former ALL graduate and New York Riptide goalie. His brother Kevin played in one of the games, but Stephen played in the other 3 and showed quite well. Now, Austin Stotts, his name comes to mind because he was a hero in 2 of those games. In game 1, I believe he scored with 25 seconds left to win that game by 1 goal. Last night, he had 4 goals and 2 assists, and he had the game winner in double overtime. So, the guys who are supposed to be doing it are doing it.
And I think that's what you want. The playoffs bring up a real level of energy that we see, and it's amazing because with lacrosse, players are accustomed to raising their level of play when it comes to playoff time because they play, more than once a year. Some of them play up to 3, 4, different leagues. So they have an understanding of what it takes to get up for the game. Gary, when these players are playing here, how easy is it with this league and these teams as far as familiarity with their teammates is concerned?
I would say fairly good. Teams like Six Nations and Peterborough, the majority of their team have been together for many years, with additions here and additions there. But overall, I would say that they're very long-standing teams. And yes, they play on different teams in the NLL, but every year in the summer, most of the guys from Peterborough are from Peterborough.
Right.
A lot of the guys that are on Six Nations are from in and around the Six Nations.
Reserve. Yeah.
And teams like Brooklyn, I got to commend them because they lost a lot of veterans to the PLL and their rules. They lost a lot of veterans to just being wanting to have summers. So they had mostly a youth movement on that team, and they did a wonderful job being able to whip them into shape and coaching. They are going to be a juggernaut in this league. They're fast. They're able to score. A guy like Dyson Williams just came and took this league by storm. In a second, I'll get on to the MSL awards, and he's in there for two of them. So,
Hey,
you know,
Gary, I got an idea.
what's that?
Why don't you talk about the MSL awards?
Hey, what a great idea! I think I might just do that. The MVP of the league was Cody Jamieson for all he's done for Six Nations, and I think that was a very well deserved award. The Merv McKenzie Award for Most Valuable Defender had me scratching my head a little bit because they gave it to Scott Dominey, and again another former guest of ours. And Scott's a great transition player, good defenseman, but I would have probably looked at somebody with more, caused turnovers, loose balls, things like that. But whatever. Scott's a well-deserving player for the award, and congratulations to Scott. Now, Rookie of the Year award I had mentioned already was Dyson Williams. He just took the league by storm for Brooklyn, and he was their leader. In fact, he led the league in scoring and won the Bucko McDonald Award for leadership in scoring. The Harry Lumley Award was for goalies with the best goals against average, and that was given to Doug Jamieson of Six Nations. You could say that it's kind of strange because he split the duties with Warren Hill, but looking at the league, Mike Poulin split the duties with Doug Buchan and eventually Matt Vince. In Brooklyn, it was Riley Hutchcraft and Nick DeMood. In Coburg, it was the Orleman brothers of Stephen and Kevin. So everybody split it with everything. So, Doug Jamieson had the best goals against average. Kudos to Doug.
I just want to point out for hockey fans. Yes, Harry Lumley is another one of those hockey guys that played lacrosse, and he played goal for both. He played goal in lacrosse and in hockey as well.
Yes, he did.
Connection again.
Mm-hmm. And the Terry Sanderson Award for coaching staff. I just brought this up. It went to the Brooklyn lacrosse team for all they had done whipping that team of youngsters into shape to be something that gave Peterborough a good run for their money. And again, I look for big things coming in the near future as they're only going to get better as they get more seasoned with the MSL and with the NLL continually to play. The Jim Brady Award goes to volunteers. Now, the MSL Board of Governors gave it to Major Series Lacrosse. And upon first look, you're going, they gave it to themselves? But when you look at the trials and tribulations of this particular season, with the Brampton Owen Sound thing, with at one point they were pulling the plug on the league because they weren't sure how to handle it, with Oakville saying, no, thank you, we'll do this again next year, but we're not going to do it this year. To be able to get a league together with 4 teams, to have it have a full summer of lacrosse, and to have the playoffs the way they are, and have some of the spectacular games that we've had. Yes, there's been some hiccups. Yes, there's been some kerfuffles in there and some things that make you scratch your head. But they were able to pull this off. Don't forget, they also lost Doug Louie, the commissioner, who had stepped down amidst all this gobbledygook. And they had to do it with an interim commissioner as well as a board. So yeah, I can see why they would give it to everybody involved in Major Series Lacrosse, not just the board, but everybody involved. Because remember, it's volunteer work for everybody. So
absolutely, absolutely.
And that's it. So I'm waiting on the date. They haven't given us a date. I'm assuming tomorrow or Saturday will be the first game of the finals in Six Nations, since they finished with the top record, and we'll go from there. And I say Peterborough's vying for a 4-peat of the Mann Cup, which is unprecedented, I believe.
Okay, let's move on to the WLA playoffs. They're in the first round.
They are in the first round, and we've had some very, very interesting things go on because heading into the playoffs, we wound up with a logjam at first place. We had 4 teams with a 12-6 record. So when we went to aggregates and things like that to figure out who would finish first and who finished fourth, it turned out that Langley finished first, Coquitlam finished second, Nanaimo finished third, and Victoria finished fourth. And you have Langley versus Victoria and Nanaimo versus Coquitlam. And the Timbermen of Nanaimo are up 3-0 on the Adanacs right now. And you have a goalie who we know his father. We know his father quite well, Brian Shanahan. Devlin Shanahan has stepped in and been absolutely spectacular in the nets of Nanaimo. And, you know, that team is doing spectacular. Now you look at the team, and I look at the roster on it, and you could thank Oakville for not being in the MSL because you have Zach Mans on the team, Adam Jay's on the team. With Brampton not being in there, Adam Wiedemann is is on this team. So they were able to be beneficiaries of the East not really having things together right away, and they signed these players. And Zach Mans in the last game, well, he was spectacular. He was one of the 3 stars, but he in the 3 games in the playoffs so far, he's got 4 goals and 12 assists. Colton Lidstone has a goal and 8 assists. Tiger Clark, 3 goals, 5 assists. It's a very balanced attack from this team. Jerome Thompson's playing with them again. He came back and is playing as well with this team. And it's funny because Coquitlam has been known for their goaltending because Christian Del Bianco has been their goaltender, and through most of the year has stood on his head for these wins, facing 60 or 70 shots. So I think it's finally catching up to the team that their defense hasn't been the best of the best.
What I like is that the Victoria Shamrocks that really they kind of slid into the playoffs in not such a good way. They could have finished first if they would have kept pace with the other 3 teams, but they did not. But they seem to have righted their ship in the game that they won.
Yeah, because they look kind of weak in the first 2 games, and I'm a backer of the Shamrocks, and my first question is, what's wrong with them? What's going on?
It's something
Are
that
they
started
relying
at
too
the
much
end
on
of the season.
brothers? It's possible, But yeah, a 10-3 win back on Tuesday. They're playing again at 9:30 tonight Eastern time. So if they have a good showing there, and that series will be tied. So there's still a lot of lacrosse to be played before they make it into their finals, which always seems to be the case. The East is sitting there waiting afterwards because I have a feeling that Eastern final is going to go 6 or 7 games. They're that good, and they've had that many really good games during the year. So I expect to see some really, really great stuff here. I look forward to traveling to a bunch of those games here since I can't make it to the Western ones. I have a tough enough time staying up watching them. But yeah, it's the future of this is bright, and the Man Cup is going to be spectacular, and it's here in the East.
And there's no shortage of lacrosse to watch.
No, that's the other bonus. You have between the MSL, WLA, the PLL also on weekends. You are witnessing some of the greatest lacrosse ever. Now, we had some of the world tournaments as well. Um, we've watched some fantastic lacrosse
Okay,
both men and men.
let's clean up the WLA. And then so we can anything else to close out, or we'll move on to the Olympics.
We can move on to the Olympics.
So the Olympics are looking at various sports on entering the Olympics. One of which is lacrosse. We've talked about it on this show. We've talked about how the work that the PLL is doing is in preparation for the Olympics. Things are looking good. They have an idea what they want to do. They've got a great TV package they're working on, and the Olympics now is looking to broaden their scope. So that gives lacrosse a real nice opportunity to show what they can do. There won't be total pressure on them to perform. Not that they won't, but what they do won't be central. They'll get a chance to stretch a little bit. And I like this. I like this for the Olympics. It's a great sport for the Olympics. I think the world, you know, well, the world is beginning to understand Aboriginal people and the native people of North America who we're beginning to recognize in the sense of being proud of them and allowing them to show their pride. And I don't think there's anything that brings out the pride of a community more than the Olympics, or should.
Great. Plus,
Say
you
that.
take a look at the amount of countries that are going to get a chance to see it. Like we're talking about cable and things like that. This is the mecca of everybody in the world witnessing what a great sport it is. We have the purists going, well, the Sixes aren't really a good. You know what? Let's worry about getting it in first before we start maneuvering. Get your foot in the door before you start playing. Well, we need to have it this way. Get in the door. However it takes it. Rugby sevens. I'm sure that the rugby purists didn't like that originally either, but guess what? They're in. You know, just get lacrosse in there. Um,
Well, I'm a
they
firm believer of the game. The rules of the game in how they play are important, but the way the game is formatted, whether it's outdoor, indoor, you still, I think, get the benefit of what's the beauty about the game. Now, when you start getting into the game and you become more knowledgeable about it, then all of a sudden you start developing preferences, whether it is for players or whether it is for the fans, whether it's grass or whether it's turf. So the sixes are basically an introduction to the game in a way that people can see it like it's played kind of both ways. So it's a compromise, and sometimes to accomplish good, you can't lose the opportunity. It can't be lost because we're looking for perfection. So as they say, you can't chase good away and chasing perfection. So the good matters, and that's what we've got going on here with the Olympics.
Absolutely, and to say the media thing said, the Olympic dream just inched a little bit closer to reality because lacrosse is one of 9 sports that have been invited by the LA 2028 group to present their case for inclusion. World Lacrosse developed the sixes for this. Uh, Baseball, softball, cricket, flag football, karate, kickboxing, motorsport, and squash are the other sports being considered. To me, this is a no-brainer, and especially the way they're presenting things, I think it's a no-brainer whatsoever. If Olympics want quick, the sixes are definitely a thing that will work for them. Shorter games. Uh, I think that box players will thrive in this scenario because the field is much shorter, and it kind of works like a shinny game in hockey because there is no face-offs. You score, you pull it out, and you go forward. So you kind of have a mesh of both sports, field and box. A smaller field, you're putting 6 on instead of 11 or 12, and you're able to maneuver, but still using a lot of the field rules. So it's an exciting game. It's almost it's morphing into a whole different sport altogether of lacrosse, another entity.
Yeah,
So
and it's an amazing pace because keep in mind, once the goal is scored, the official whistles, game on, baby.
that's it, and away we go. If you decided to admire it, you're watching the play.
Yeah, so
And
now they've
field,
developed a super transition in the game, right?
that's another thing. It's a really good point you brought up there, Frank, because what's going to increase in all of the sports, including NLL, is the transition game, because that's what this is all about. Is about the transition game. So you're going to see players that have specialized in it excel, and you're going to see other players try and excel in this because they're looking for a niche, which they will bring back to the box sport, be it MSL, WLA, or NLL, ALL, even junior, OGLL, or some of the other ones around the country. And I think that it's just going to grow from that point. I'm interested to see come February when the PLL puts on their tournament, which is, of course, going to be in the sixes format with their TV guys to try and figure out the best angles, to try and figure out how all the other logistical things will work. Remember, the thing that they have going for them is the 2028, they have 5.5 years to try and get it all the bugs worked out. So when this thing makes it to the main stage, you have you know, the finished product, not any of the growing pains that we're going to witness over the next year or two. And listen to everybody moan and groan. They're growing. They're figuring it out. Give them an opportunity. Let them work it out. Instead of just doing things spur of the moment, and we've seen a lot of things in a lot of sports, try that and fail and flop. Here, you've got some really fantastic minds in lacrosse, in marketing, in television, to try and work it all out. And by the time we get this finished product, probably the year beforehand, we're going to see already the camera angles that are going to be able to give us, because already in PLL, we're seeing a bunch of angles that we never saw in field before. to be able to watch these things and to have players mic'd and to have, on the spot during a play, just after a play, to be able to answer a question. So to me, that's a really, really big deal. Everybody
I think,
laughed,
Gary, if I can add another point to the game, how it might change. We've talked over the show, and we've had some guests remind us because of goalie equipment, goalies aren't passing as much. But the temptation for goalies to pass now, because as long as they can fish the ball out of the net, and then the fast
pass.
break,
See you later.
yeah, if they, it'll put pressure on them to get their game in order too. So that's another change to look forward to. Again, it's about the transition, and it'll be, we always talk about lacrosse being, based almost on lacrosse. Like it looks like hockey, but it
Mhm.
plays like basketball, right?
Right.
Now you've got that soccer touch where you've got the goaltender can hike the ball all the way up because it's on grass and because it's a bigger field. It'll
Mhm.
have a bit of a soccer feel because of that as well. So that's something Olympic fans will understand and relate to.
Yeah. And as it stands now, with the PLL for their tournament, the top 4 teams from this season make it in, and the top 7 make it in for the playoffs as is out of the 8 teams. But the top 4 make it um, to this tournament. Now, the other interesting thing is because it's during the NLL season, they're not going to be using NLL players on it, which will make a big difference of the teams that they're going to play in this tournament, obviously. But they're going to use a number of players from their pool, guys who didn't make the teams, didn't make the squads for one reason or another, couldn't play. Probably a lot of NCAA guys, and it's going to give them an opportunity to showcase their talents and their skills. And you watch how many diamonds in the rough will be found doing this thing, both in NLL and PLL, summer and winter, as well as MSL They'll be keeping their eyes open as well. Just
Absolutely.
and it just the more opportunities you get, the better it is. And this is just another brainchild of the PLL, and it really works. We're talking about it as the Olympic Sixes, but you think about the marketing genius in the PLL is remember their playoffs are in September, and so by the time the Christmas rolls around, you kind of a little bit fuzzy about was there a PLL who, NLL starting up. Well, come February, PLL is back in people's tongues 6 months after it's been finished, just in time to ramp it up as you get out of February into March, and we're talking about training camps, and we have the PLL season in June. So to get people thinking about PLL and field right then and there. So to me, it's a marketing stroke of genius by Mick Davis and his team. And we heard Mick on the show, and 24/7 he's thinking about views and butts and seats. That's all he thinks about, and the marketing of it. And they've done a tremendous job, and getting on with new sponsors. There's money flowing in. They're part of the ESPN and TSN contracts as well in their sport, and they've done wonders with it. And the game is growing in leaps and bounds. And
Well,
we're
there's a new area of marketing because of the PLL. They do things differently. It's a little bit. They've tweaked into the new world how they do it. It's ways that I'm going to use the term. Their way they're promoting the game is almost scientific. It's data driven.
It's a really great way to put it. Um, they have all the information, everything at their fingertips. They're using different schemes, shall we say, to market it. They have the best players in the world playing field, the best field players in the world, bar none. So they can market it as such, and we're the beneficiaries of seeing some absolutely spectacular lacrosse. And it's only going to get better as we get down the stretch here and get into the playoffs. Again, you have another one where you have a logjam. You have 3 teams that's sitting at 5-3 in second place. You know, and then of course you have the Whip Snakes who are 7-1. But these teams, but for a goal here or there, they could be 7-1. The it's funny because you talk about the parity of these things, and the parity of these teams are amazing. Overall.
And think of the challenge of developing teams and a league that acquires that balance. It's hard to do. For example, when you're the NBA or the NHL and you're not really competing with anybody in North America.
Right.
Think of it in the context, folks, of the success of this in lacrosse, and not just the PLL, but almost every other league. They're doing it in competition with each other. There's, now I'm not here to say every league is equal. Everybody has their own opinion on how every league fits in, but they're all concerns, and they all have quasi the same kind of fan base. So the attraction that they have, it's amazing how they can put together teams and put together a league of teams that are as competitive as these ones are. That challenge. I think that's a testament to the history of lacrosse and the fact that they are such. It's such a free flowing sport when it comes to the players and where they play.
Hmm. Also, remember that this is a first foray of not having home teams. This is a traveling circus. All the teams go to the same destination every single weekend. This weekend they happen to be in Salt Lake City. The week after they'll be in Seattle. The week after that they'll be doing the quarterfinals in Boston. I believe the finals are in Philadelphia this year. Washington for the semifinals and the championship game in Philadelphia. So a lot of cities are getting a chance to see this. Big cities, small cities. We've had Fairfield, Connecticut. We've had Denver. Dallas has had it. We've had, the All Star game was in Boston as well. And that All Star weekend, again, you've listened to me until you're sick of hearing me talk about how we need an All Star game in the NLL. Well, this All Star game and the other excitement to it, the skills competitions, that was a fantastic day. I enjoyed it immensely. Now, granted, the score was ridiculous. I think it was 33-10 or something like that. But it really didn't matter. We watched the best of the best do what they do best and have fun doing it. Showing that they love the game. And then when you're talking about skills competitions, you're looking at a guy who can shoot 118 miles an hour to win the hardest shot competition. You're looking at a guy like Marcus Holman, who can hit the all 5 of the targets and still have 10 or 12 seconds left on the clock, whereas none of the others hit the accuracy of something like that. My thing was that the 2 guys that made the finals for the hardest shot were both defensemen using long poles. Who'd have thought? Just amazing to watch it and speed and watching some of the other things and agility. It was amazing, and what a great idea. And they used the ESPN and TSN to their advantage to be able to put this out and have this as just a celebration of the game. And
Well, we've come to realize, I think, generally speaking in sports, we've come to realize that football was the first. The NFL was the first to realize that the game really isn't that important. It's the celebration of the game that's more important. And as you said, all these competitions and these contests, basically highlighting the skills. All the different skill competitions now in all the sports are more popular than the actual game. Now, baseball is the one that's the easiest to replicate. In other words, the All-Star game can look a lot more like a regular baseball game, but that's by virtue of the fact that there's no contact, no direct contact. So
right.
that makes it easier. It's just, playing baseball. And these guys play 162 games in a season. So, it's not like they're not unaccustomed to it. But when you're talking about football, lacrosse, hockey, keep naming names. It's harder. It's harder to replicate the game, but the competitions are awesome. The skills that you use to play that game, we begin to realize how important they are because of the fact that the game isn't what really brings us there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's a fun thing. We talked about football briefly, and you think for all the silliness that Vince McMahon brought in with the XFL, but you take a look at some of the camera angles that the NFL uses, that the PLL uses, that even NLL uses, And you can thank Vince McMahon for initiating and trying different things. How many times you seen cameras on the field in a CFL game now? Right up until you never saw that before. That was a Vince McMahon idea with the XFL, the original incarnation of that XFL. Let alone those cameras that go floating by where you're following the ball, you're almost right behind the ball, and some of the other things that us fans have been blessed to be able to see. It's not just one sitting up in the middle of the section and there's cameras. It brings more of that three-dimensional thing that is what we sell the sport on.
Well, it's
Because
about eye candy, right? It's about the visuals. The visuals are very important. That's the whole point of
Mhm. Well,
streaming
one of the things I've
television.
tell people is you want to see the thing live because television gives you a two-dimensional view of a three-dimensional game.
Right.
But now with some of the camera angles and some of the other things that they're doing, you're almost able to get that three-dimensional idea going on. Plus, you're able to get zoomed in. And now with players being mic'd up and being able to answer questions after the whistle, you're set.
Absolutely. We're also, what the other thing that Vince McMahon did, and lacrosse has picked up on it, PLL in particular, and other, like you said, other leagues as well, where he takes the game on the road, not a contest. He takes the game on the road. That's what he did with WWE. That's what made it so great, is that you didn't go there just to see one wrestler. You went there to see a bunch of wrestlers, or you would go to see one particular wrestler. But the point is, there was a menu, and that's one of the things as well. Not just camera angles, but also the
Right.
idea of creating an event where you go into a town and you can interest, some 50, 100,000 people, and you don't have to have them all in one building at one time, but in a weekend you can have a lot of games, and you can have people come, and once they watch one game, if it's a package that they buy, they go, okay, I'll buy a package for two games. And again, it's that same thing we talk about all the time. Lacrosse needs to be experienced, and one thing we've all learned: once you experience it, it's hard to not like and
Yeah.
not
Once
to
it gets in the blood,
enjoy.
forget it. You're there for life.
Right.
How many times have we heard that from players? We've heard that from
It's the whole
hard.
subject matter of our interviews, and we have every player. That's why the most important question I've ever asked, and the one I like asking every week: so, how did you get involved?
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, most of the guys answered that they were playing a different sport, looked over their shoulder, and what was that? And then boom, ask a few questions. Next thing you know, it they're being fitted for a Woody.
There's that term I was talking about. They trip over the game,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't go there looking for it, but something happens for some reason. You end up recognizing the game, seeing the game, and then you wonder about it. You take a look at it, and because it is so different than any other sport, we again, I repeat, that people say the game is based on basketball. It looks like hockey. I just talked about how, with the transition game changing the way it is, a goaltender can fish the ball out of the net and start the game in transition like that. So yeah, the game has a real depth to it, and that's something that, as a fan, that's the part that attracts you, and it's essentially in that transition is what keeps you on the edge of your seat.
absolutely. And you look at it now at this particular time of the summer, we have the best of all worlds going on. We've got the playoffs with MSL and WLA. We have the PLL heading into the playoffs in the next couple of weeks. We have the draft coming up in a few weeks' time for the NLL, the entry draft. We have the Man Cup coming up soon. So it's a really really good time to be watching lacrosse and to being experiencing it, whether it's live or on devices or on TV. And it's available all over the place now. And before you could only find it, maybe in a sports section, maybe on a page, maybe the occasional thing here or there. Now it's there, it's front and center. So let's
Absolutely.
hope that Brett Fruit continues to run with this stuff in the NLL. I think it's a really bright time, and I think we're all going to experience some really immense stuff in the next little while.
We sure will. Gary, we'll have to leave it there for this week, buddy. Thanks for all this.
Oh, it's always my pleasure talking lacrosse, Frank. It's a great day when we talk lacrosse.
Well, we don't need guests, but we love them. and we'll get back to them next week. Thanks, Gary, for this, and thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. On behalf of Gary Groob, myself, Frank Stanisci, thank you for watching. Lacrosse Talk seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's not 4 p.m., but we did it at 7 for the guest. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for lacrosse talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We love to confuse people on what time it is. See you next time.
4 p.m. out west.